Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the first video training session for the Binary Signs Coogan & Coogan Digital Display CMS. All right, so once you've logged in with your username and password to the address that was provided to you, you're going to pop up on this screen right here. This is going to be your dashboard. Over to your right, there's just a bunch of quick links in the dashboard. And on your left, this is the main navigation panel. So this is where most of the stuff's going to be located. Although, to be honest, most of the things you're going to do are going to be in the right-hand side. So you're going to be in your schedule, your layouts, your library, and your templates. So a quick overview. All right, your scheduling, that is where when you've created layouts, that's where the layouts are going to be told to display on the side, and when to turn off and all that kind of jazz. So layouts are your messages. That is the content that you're going to be presenting on the display itself and how it's formatted. Library would be digital media such as pictures or videos that you would like to save on the system for use on the display systems. And templates are essentially layouts that you've pre-created and would like to reuse that particular layout format. We'll get into that in just a minute. So you've got that. Then we've got, that's all the same thing over here on the left-hand side. We've got scheduled, day parting. We'll get into day parting in a little bit. Campaigns, we'll get into campaigns a little bit later too. Layouts, templates, media, data sets. Most people are not going to be using data sets, and I'll probably offer another video in conjunction with these for the people that are interested. Displays and display groups. Now, you won't have any display groups unless you've got multiple displays. However, you can, if you had multiple displays across the country or across your campus, you could add them into the display group, and that would allow you to schedule to them as if they were a display. And then everybody gets the same content without you having to go, to display and display and display. That also gives the ability for you to overlay. So you can use a display group. Let's say, for instance, you're Burger King, and you have 400 different stores. And again, I'm just pulling these numbers out of my head. Let's say you got 400 different stores. You're the corporate office, and you want a specific ad to be thrown out there. It says, "Burger King, we're great." Okay, that's fine for the nationwide campaign, but then the local stores may have their own specific content that they would like published out, and that's separately schedulable. So when you schedule to a display group, everybody in that group gets those messages on top of whatever they've been scheduled by their specific display. All right, so let's move on from there. All right, so first thing where you're going to spend most of your time is in layouts. So again, this is where the content is created. So let's go ahead and click on that. And now we've got it opened up. We've got a message in here that we called new test. And that's pretty much it. So let's just open that up for just a second so we can get an idea of how these are put together. So we click on the little arrow over to the right of the message itself and hit design. Now that allows us to edit this specific message. And this is the content that we have pre-placed in this message. So let's say this is Lake Pontchartrain Elementary. Now I understand elementary schools don't have proms, but this is just a demonstration, so let's not get crazy about it. Each one of these locations, so here is a region that I placed on this display, and this is another region that I've placed on this display. I left an intentional gap in between the two so that you could tell there is definitely a region that's located here. There is some difference between these two areas. And each one of these is programmable. So within this region, we have the Lake Pontchartrain Elementary logo with their pelicans standing on top of the piers. And then on the right-hand side, this is basically what I'm calling our informational region. In this region, we've got prom, November 21st. If you look at the bottom of each one of these, with our mouse held over it, it'll say 1 of 1, and this gives you the file name, so it's PON logo. And then over to the right on our text region, or our informational region, we've got 1 of 2. This is currently a text, and it is 5 seconds long, so it stays on the display for 5 seconds, and then moves to this. Now, when that loads in, that's going to be a time and temperature, or basically a temperature display, weather overlay that gets dumped onto the sign. And this is GPS coordinated, so when it goes out to your display, it's going to have the local on the ground recorded positions of all the weather elements that are going on. So if it's raining there, it's going to have this little cloudy sky. If it's bright blue skies, it's going to be a bright blue sky with little clouds in there. It's very pretty. If it's twilight or dusk, it'll be a sunshine or a sunset. And if it's at night, it'll probably show a moon or something. I can't remember exactly what it looks like. But these images change depending on the time of day and the weather conditions outside. If it's snowing outside, you'll see, I'm sure, a picture of snow. We in Louisiana don't particularly have that too often, so we rarely get to see that. So if you ever see a sign with snow on it like that, you might want to take a picture. You won't see it again very often. All right, so to edit the information in these two regions, it's extremely simple. Over on the left-hand side for this little graphic, if you hit the little arrow to the right-hand side of the dimensions of that specific graphic region, we're going to select it and hit Edit Timeline. So within that timeline, I've got my logo. It's Pond logo, 3 seconds. Doesn't really matter what I put on here as long as it's shorter than or nothing. You don't have to put anything in the duration. We'll edit that so you can see what I'm talking about. So we'll edit this. And you can see the scale type is stretch. If you do not set it to stretch, it will only fill up the extents that are necessary to make the picture viewable. So if you've got a picture that's canvas and you're trying to display it on a portrait sign, it's going to look a little funny. It's going to just, actually it won't look funny. It'll just be the size that it's supposed to be to fit in there and not look weird. However, if you select stretch, and let's say your region is a rectangle, but your picture is a square, it's going to stretch that image out. So be sure to select the right scale type. Just so you know, if we select center for scale type, we also have horizontal alignments and vertical alignments that we can adjust. So let's go ahead and put that back to stretch. Okay, so our duration is 3 seconds. We do not have to have anything in the duration at all. It's going to say it's required now, but when you first create it, it doesn't even ask you for a duration. So we'll again put 3 seconds because it's not really necessary. Actually, if you unset the set duration, that's just as fine as well. So we'll go ahead and let that go back off, and you can see there's no more duration on this. And you'll see why that's not important in just a minute. So we can either X out here, or we can go down to the bottom of the screen and save order, and that will save the order of all of the things that we've stuck in there. Now, for FYI, if you add more images or more media, whether it be text or tickers or video or whatever within this little region, it's going to play this for 5 to 10 seconds, then it's going to move to the next one, and when it plays that for the allotted amount of time, or the default, it'll move to the next one. Now, all of that is more or less controlled by the longest running frame, or the longest running region. So currently this region has no time on it. So we'll go ahead and save that order and get out of here, and I'll show you why we don't need it. Because the longest running time is over here. So currently we have this one at 3 seconds, and now it's just set to play. But because this guy actually has, the one on the right actually has a time base, it's 11 seconds long. So this, from start to finish, from here in the text, from the first frame to the last frame, is 11 seconds. And then this entire layout will expire from your screen, and the next layout will be loaded in depending on your schedule, or this one will be loaded back in if it's the only thing scheduled to play. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get out of this, and I'll show you how I created this. So we'll go back to layouts, and we will simply add a layout. Now, when you're adding a layout, this is very important to name the layout. You'll want to give it a name of some sort. And you can name it pretty much whatever you'd like. If it's already has something selected, it just gives it a different ID number. I don't think you'll even notice. So we'll just call it test. and see what happens. Resolution is your next most important thing. You're going to want to select the resolution for the display that you're creating this content for. So if you have multiple displays, you're going to want to watch especially which display you're creating for at any given time. If you have one display, you are going to have to put in something in here. If you leave it at 1080p SignWorks, that's basically going to be a 1080p large frame display. When you put it on your sign, it's going to look very funny because it's going to squish it and scrunch it and stuff it on there, and things are going to fit, and sometimes they're not. So select the resolution that you are using on your display, and if you don't know, contact me and we'll get you that information as soon as possible. So we'll just select our region, our resolution, and now we've got our name, so we'll go ahead and hit save. Just FYI, tags are for searching. That's for searchability. So if this message was, let's say for instance, sports related, then I would type sports in here, and if every message that I created had with sports had the sports tag on it, it would be easier to search for later. So it's just, these are just tagged, comma delineated search phrases that you can use to pull up all of the messages with sport or all of the messages with whatever tag you put in it. Template is something we'll get to in just a little bit. That's not going to be populated right now because we don't have one. But we'll get to that. Those are pretty handy if you get used to using them. So we'll save that and move on. So it's going to populate the design screen. And there we go. If we just wait just a second. Now within the design screen, you've got a couple of tabs up here. You've got your designer and you've got your actions. And that selects all these little informational buttons down here. And actions are things you can do within this particular layout. So we'll go back to designer, and also notice on the end that it's going to give us a time base, this green time base right here. This is for the entire layout. So as we add things into the layout, the time is going to either extend or retract depending on the time base we set for each region. And it's the total amount of time within the entire layout that this is going to calculate. And if you hold your mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly what I just said. This is going to give you the message that you're currently editing, but it'll also give you other messages that you have. So you can go from one to another, just making your changes as you go. So we'll go back in here. Now, over on the left-hand side of the designer tab, we've got our background. And we can decide we want a colored background or an image background. It's totally up to you. We also have regions. This is a region, as we discussed before. So these are fully scalable within your display. One caveat or note of interest is that if you do not save the position, then the next time you load that particular message, your position will go back to wherever it was. So let's say we just did that, then we go in and we edit the timeline. Then when we came out of edit timeline, this would move itself back to where it was where you saved it. And if you had never saved it, it would be the full extent of the sign, regardless of how many layers you put in, how many regions you installed. They'd all just be sitting on top of each other. So we have to position them and then save them as we go. So let's add that one. This will be our text, our graphical region that we're going to stick in there. And you can make it text, you can make it a video, you can make it anything you want. You can put these anywhere and however you wish. If you want it in the middle, you're welcome to do it. If you want to make 3 regions and cut them into thirds, then you've technically got 3 signs running independently on your single display. But for our purposes for this layout, I'm just going to use this one on the side. And then I'm going to add another region. And you'll see it pops in another region here in just a minute. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and grab this guy. Oop, my mouse is not wanting to work. I want to grab it at the bottom down here. But this mouse is definitely not wanting to work. There it is. And you just want to click that and it'll automatically bring it inside the region. So now we're going to go ahead and size this up to the way we want it. So let's say we want it just about like, I don't know, That looks good for now. So we'll save that. Come here. Sorry, my mouse is a little funny. All right, so now we've got all of our regions where we would like them for the time being. Let's go ahead and add some content. So let's go ahead and put that image that we put on the other one, that little elementary school logo. So we'll open that up in Edit Timeline. And we're going to go on down to Image. As you can see, you can select any of these. You can put a clock in there, libraries or media, basically. You can put a weather widget in there. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I think I kind of went over it, just what it looks like. Flash media, Google traffic pages, which is essentially a view of Google Earth with traffic updates that are live. HLS is live videos, but you'll have to support or allow and supply a stream to that HLS video. Images, which is what we're currently going to do. Local videos are stored on the local display client. You really don't want to mess with that too often. Text, tickers, Twitter, video, and a web page. I don't really recommend using web pages on the displays, mostly because for the most part displays are out in the middle of a field somewhere, and the internet connection can sometimes be a little spotty. So you don't want to put YouTube videos up there and have to rely on the internet when it doesn't have a clean, hard connected internet, or at least a very, very reliable internet source so that it can reach that media content whenever it needs to play. So let's see, we're going to go ahead and add in that image. Where do we go? There we go. And you can see we're going to go ahead and add files, and we'll go to downloads and move on down here. There's the Lake Pontchartrain logo. We'll hit open. So that opens up our logo. We're going to go ahead and hit start upload, and it's probably going to tell me that I already have one in there. Oh, okay, it took it. And we're done. All right. So now notice when we exit out of this that the region is full, but the side, the top and bottom are not covered by the image. The image is not extended to the extents of the region. So to fix that, to make that work, we're going to stretch this. That's very simple to do. We're just going to go in and edit it. Now you need to be careful, obviously, because if you're taking something and putting it in a region that's very small, or something like this, if you're going to make it a rectangle like this, or a full rectangle, and then you stretch the extents of this image, it's going to distort the image. So you'll need to keep that in mind when you're creating this stuff. So let me go ahead and undo that to get it back to its original position. Good Lord, how many times did I click that? Oh, there we go. And eventually it'll load because of my incredibly slow network connection. So we're just going to go ahead and edit that timeline because I know it's, ooh, wow, that didn't work. Sorry, my internet is a little slow. We'll go ahead and edit the position now. And then we're going to edit it, that particular image. And we'll just wait for it. And then scale type, we're going to set for stretch. Now notice we are not putting in a duration. We're just going to let that roll. We'll go ahead and hit save. And you'll see when this exits out that it will now take up the extents of the region. Okay, so now we've got our little logo over here, and we've got our little piece right here. We've got our informational side. We're going to go ahead and populate this. So let's go ahead and save that position. And we'll edit that, edit the timeline. So we select that little arrow and hit edit timeline. And we're just going to dump some text in there. So we're going to say text, and it's going to load up depending on your internet speed, maybe faster, maybe slower. Once we've got it loaded, the little red box in there, that is the graphical representation as best as possible with this editor of your display. So anything that you put within that red box is going to be in that region that you've got laid out. So, and it will adjust its size and shape depending on the region that you've made. So we're going to go ahead and select all the text on here because this thing tends to put in a enter text here, ... Yep, there it is. And you can see all this stuff is outside of the region, so it would not even show up. So let's select that. And notice now my cursor is gray. That means not that it's gray, but that it's actually black. So the default is black. We set the software up to automatically use white on start just so you can see what's going on. But if you delete all that text the way I just did, you'll have to set your color to whatever you'd like. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete that back. And now we'll go ahead and set our color. I don't know, we'll make it a gold or something. There we go, because I think that's the color of that school. So we're going to call this, we're going to say, I don't know, this is a test message. All right, now notice it didn't take my color change. So let me go ahead and select my text since it wants to be contrary, and we'll select the color, and now it's changed it. So now when we drop down, now notice when I drop down, do you see how far the cursor dropped? So when we type, it's a little bit of a block distance between this text and this text. Let me show you a trick. Just as regular enter drops you down to a new paragraph, and it says right here, enter alone starts a new paragraph. Well, if you notice right here, shift plus enter will drop a single line feed. It doesn't say line feed, it just says line, but we'll hit shift, hit enter, and you'll see that it drops down to much better conserve the space that we're working with of the sign. All right, so now we want to go ahead and format that just a little bit. We'll select it and hit center justification. As you can see, it just centered all the text up. Now, there is no up and down justification on the system, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is just save this as it is. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and edit this just a little bit. We're going to add in, put a little trick in here. Let's see. We're going to drop down a line, and we're going to put the clock. Now you can double click that, and then you can change it, because currently that uppercase H will be military time. So we're just going to put a single H in there. And then we're going to put space A. Now that's for AM and PM. Those are the insertables for that. So we'll save that and see what that looks like. It didn't update yet, just wait. So there, that's a basic overview of what we're going to look like. And when we jump out of that, we'll see this will update. Now, this is important to remember. Notice how the text doesn't quite add up to what we've created. So let's go back into our timeline, and we're going to have to shrink this text down just a little bit because we've made the extents a little too far, and it's not quite fitting in the real time. And it can be done a couple of different ways, probably because the system, the CMS, doesn't have the font to display that. So we'll go ahead and change this to the size of this guy. Come on. Of course, that's possible that that's part of it too, is that my internet is so slow here. Can I have a size, please? And we will also drop down a single line feed and see what that does. And personally, I prefer, instead of the X at the top, I like to hit that little save order, just because it makes me feel better. And now you can see that it's populated our text correctly on the sign. You can kind of see what's going on. So this is a test of the message, and it's got a test message of the sign at 5:39 p.m. Now, here's a little handy thing. If it's too big or too small, you can increase the size or decrease the size of your region, and that will allow, so let's say you had your region was a little small. Then when we populate that in, you can see it lost some of the content. So to make that fit, we'll just drop it down a little bit. And you always want to do these regions one at a time. But when you've got it laid out just the way you want it, so we're going to load that in there. We'll go ahead and hit save region position. Now, let's add something else in there. So that is one text message. We're going to edit that. So now we're going to have to add, because we're adding more stuff in there, we're going to go ahead and have to add in some properties. So we're going to edit that text overlay and go to options. And we're going to select the set duration. We're going to let it save for 5 seconds. We're also going to change the background to some kind of blue, which is, I believe, their school colors. Well, that works. And we're just going to copy that because we may use it later. So all I did was just Control-C that. And we'll save it. Now we're going to go ahead and add some more. So this is reflected here. It's text 5 seconds. So we're going to add some more text and pretty much do the same thing. We're just going to punch in a message. Let's select a font. That looks good, and we'll go by 9 characters height. So all right, so another test, and we'll go ahead and put the date in on that one. So we'll just select the date, and it's a double click, by the way. So day, month, year. I don't like day, month, year. Yes, that's actually exactly what I want. Day, month, year. And we will center all this stuff. Select that and center it. Select that. Then we're going to set our color just like the other one. And let's go ahead and add in our background color, and we just paste that in, hit save. So now you can see I have 2 messages. Now this one does not have a time, so it's going to default to 10 seconds. So let's go in and edit it. Go to options, set duration, just leave it at 5 seconds, hit save. So now when we go to actions, let's go ahead and save this order. So now when we go to actions, we can preview this layout, and it'll show as so. Alrighty. So now that you see that, we're going to go ahead and show you some other stuff with this, which is order. So the order these messages appear is changeable just by grabbing it down here with your mouse and moving it on top. So now another test is on top, and that will display first, and the second message is over here. So we're going to edit this one real quick. I didn't like the way that day, month, year thing came out, so I'm going to change that. And all you have to do is change the insertables. So I'm just going to put instead of dd/mm, I'm going to put mm/dd and hit save. Now, when we exit out of this, because we've already saved the order of everything, at least I thought I did. Nope, I didn't save the order. That was the problem. So let's go back and do that again. Another reason why I like to save order all the time. So let's move this down. And now we'll save that order. And now we are on message 2, and this is message 1. So that's how you set the order. And if you've got multiple content in there, you can just drag them and drop them, position them so that they play in the order that you would like them to play. So if you make one and then mess up and oops, I needed something in between that, feel free to make the new content and then just insert it or move it to where it needs to be. All right, so excuse me, we've added this. Let's go ahead and just make this the full extent of the sign. And we'll move that over so that it just touches the edge and drag it out. We're going to go back to the designer queue and hit save region position, because if we don't, it won't save. Now notice the whole top up here is 10 seconds. That means that this entire layout is 10 seconds long. Now we don't have a time set up on this image, but if we did and it was under 10 seconds, it would disregard that time until 10 seconds has played out. In other words, if we had 3 seconds on this Lake Pontchartrain Elementary logo and this layout played, the logo would maintain for the entire 11 seconds instead of just the 3 seconds, and then it would go out. So it will actually stay there for the extent. So the longest region timeline has precedent over the lowest region timelines. So there's never dead air on your sign. So in other words, if you only set this for 3 seconds, it wouldn't blank out after 3 seconds and just be a black screen there. It's going to leave that image up and use up the available advertising time while you're using it, while you're on there. So now we've got everything set up the way we want it. Let's go ahead and preview that. So we'll select Actions and Preview Layout. It's going to be faster on the sign. My network is a little slow here. I'm just going to ask you if you want to play it again. If you'd like to play it again, you just click the button and it'll play it again. And with that, you can admire your handiwork for the entire day if you'd like. But when you're done, you just close out of that tab. And now we've got some content, so we want to go ahead and schedule that. So now we're going to go ahead and go to Schedule. Now you can hit the Schedule Now button, but I find that it has limited options. And I'll show you what I mean by that. When we select Schedule Now, it's going to pull up the little schedule list. It's just showing you hours and minutes, or you can select Always. I don't particularly like the way this is formatted, so I tend to just exit out of that. Just go straight to Schedule so that I can see the calendar and see what's going on. Now you can see that I've already got some content scheduled display on there, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that so we can start fresh. Okay, so we're fresh. We have nothing set up here. The first thing you're going to want to do is select your display from the drop-down, and that's going to give you any content that may be scheduled to display on there so you don't conflict some things. So now we're going to just add an event. We're going to select there, and then we're going to go through the schedule setup. So an event type, it's a campaign/layout, which means it's either a campaign or a layout. It's display that it's going out to. That's who we're scheduling this for, is Shop Test, and it is a custom day parting. I said I'd get into that later. This is later. So there are different ways of day parting. You can day parting is, for instance, if you wanted to set up different scheduled times of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you could set those times in the day parting list and then populate this into your schedule time, and those would just be hard set times. So if you had a lunch menu that you wanted to be displayed between 10 o'clock and 10:30, you would just select that or set that up in day parting, call it breakfast or call it lunch or call it dinner, select the times that particular day part always runs on those days, and then it will always run on those days if it's scheduled on the days selected forever. So we're going to go ahead and put custom because we'd like this message to start and stop when we want it to. We can also select always, which will run 24/7, 365. That doesn't supersede other messages, but in the schedule queue, it will run continuously with no stop time. So we're going to say custom, and we're going to start this message to start today. So we're just going to select today, and then we're going to select, I don't know, the 25th. Okay, so this will run from 10:17 to 10:25, and I can select the time that I'd like it to start, the time that I'd like it to end. This is all in military time, so break out your calculator, non-military people. Just add I believe it's 8 to the number that you're trying to find. So if it's 3 o'clock, add 8. excuse me, I'm sorry, add 12. I don't know what I'm thinking. It's add 12 to whatever time. So if it's 3 o'clock, then you just add 12 to 3 o'clock and come up to your 1500. So we're going to have it, we're not going to select the start time. Then you're going to select your campaign layout, which is what you just created or what you're looking to put on the sign. So we're going to select new test, and then we're going to come down here and hit save. Now, display order is something I haven't really messed with all that much. I'm pretty sure that's if you'd like this to supersede the existing order of how the scheduling is displayed, you can set this to a 1, but then you have to set the next message to a 1 or to a 2 or to a 3. So each message that's in the schedule to display at this time would have to have some kind of an order. You can also set a priority. So for instance, if you handle instantaneous events or events that are now driven, like let's say for instance an Amber Alert. You get an Amber Alert, you need to put the message on the display. It needs to supersede and run forever, but on top of whatever you've got, you don't want to disturb your currently running schedule. So you would set it with a priority of 1 or above, because everything else is 0. So everything else has 0 priority. So 1 or above, the highest number wins. So if all of your stuff is 0 and you set one message to 1, that is the only message that will play. If you set messages to 1 and to 2, then 2 will play until 2 schedules out, and then 1 will play, and only 1 will play. So in other words, if the higher the schedule or the higher the priority, that's the message that plays forever until its priority runs out or until its time base runs out. So I'm going to not give this a priority, but just leave it at 0 and hit save. If you need more explanation on that, feel free to call me. And you can see it populated that message within the calendar. That's pretty much it. If we go to displays right now, we will find the display is connected. It has logged in, and it has pulled down that information that we just threw up there and is now displaying it on the sign. I could personally confirm that because I'm looking at my test shop system right now. So that's the system that's running right now. We can go over here and do a quick screenshot grab. And if your system does not come up with the screenshot, that's fine. It's defaulted to not come up with a screenshot. I'll show you how to enable the view of the screenshot. You have to kind of do that every time you log in if you want to see it or not, because it does tend to use a little bit more bandwidth. So I'm just refreshing the page to suck down that new screenshot that I got. And as you can see, I've got the time with the little temperature thing running on there. Now, just FYI, the shop system that I have has some strange configurations on it. I'm kind of tweaking some stuff and playing with it to see what it does. And so I've got something changed up, and it doesn't actually have the background on the sign. But this is a good indication that something's wrong. I need to go set some things up. I need to either look at that client, something's going on that needs my personal attention. And I was able to get that indication by looking at the screenshot. If you do not have a screenshot, you're going to go to column visibility. So when you first log into the display control system, it's going to have thumbnails unselected. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the display name, its status, whether it's full or done or if it's got a problem or whatever. Then it's going to be authorized. It better be a check mark if you're in my system. And you are logged in. That tells you whether your internet connection to the display is live and the sign has currently connected within an allotted amount of time to pull down new messages. Okay, so to get that screenshot, I'm going to go to column visibility, scroll down the page until I find thumbnail. And it's right under screenshot, but this is actually a question. So screenshot question mark is it's asking, or it's telling you if the sign is configured to even send you screenshots. I set mine all the way up from the shop to send out screenshots automatically every 15-20 minutes, just so we have some kind of idea of what's going on. So let's go ahead and go to thumbnail. So we're going to select thumbnail. Now you notice nothing really, it's hard to see that anything changed because this thing doesn't leave. So we're going to go ahead and select off of it. Now you can see that's the screenshot that just populated in a little thumbnail. If we'd like to collect a screenshot, we can slide down that little list right there. And you see, you will have the option to delete your sign, but if you do delete your sign, you just deleted your sign. You'll have to contact me to re-add that in. I could turn it off, but it actually disables some other features within the software if you limit control for delete. So I wanted to give everybody full options on it, so that they have all the systems that they need to function correctly. But to request a screenshot, you're just going to go down here and select this little request screenshot, and it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to request a screenshot? Blah blah blah. Feel free to read that at your own time. Hit save, and that will now send a request. If you are open on the, and this is a little bit of TMI, and it's more for network and IT administrators than the average user, but if you have the port 9505 opened up to form a connection, then the display client will reach out to the web server on port 9505 and form a connection between the two. That's a socket connection that then the two sides can communicate with each other. When the client it needs an update, it reaches out and grabs it. Under a time base, it's once every 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what we set it. But if you make a change, with the XMR setup, with the port 9505 open and the socket connected, if you make a change to a message, it will automatically tell the client, hey, I've got changed data, grab it. Same thing for screenshots. If you are on the XMR, then you can request a screenshot and it will automatically grab it. If you are not on the XMR, it will send you a screenshot whenever it automatically checks into the web server. So that could be anywhere from 5 to 20, 30 minutes before it will actually send you a new screenshot. So we advise everybody to have that port 9505 opened up for external and internal communications. And if not, then you're just going to have to wait for it, as well as wait for message updates and things like that. So that is about it. I think I said we'd go over day parting. So here's the day parting list. You can see we don't have any day parts in there. But if we were to add one, we'd name it, and then the start time and end time of that day part. Okay, and you've also got some exceptions. You can have it not turn on if it's Tuesday, or between these hours and these hours, and you can add in all kinds of exceptions that are different to the rule. So let's say lunch on the weekend starts, I don't know, at 12:30. You can add in Saturday and Sunday with a 12:30 exception, and that would be your day part. Then it would populate with that name in your schedule when you go to add it in for your times. You'd be able to see that message or that day part that you set up in your schedule layout. So that concludes this message, or this video. If you've got any questions, you guys know how to contact me, and carry on. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.